Alright, spoilers for School Life. Last warning, this series is best experienced without spoilers, but feel free to come back if you do end up watching it. Ree is an interesting character, and she was not what I expected. I thought she was going to be revealed to be evil, but she was a lot more complex than that. She's not evil at all. In fact, she has a lot of empathy and does her best to be a good leader for the sake of her friends. She didn't want power and didn't even expect to be given that title, but she took it and worked hard to match the roles that she was assigned to fill. She's a great character with tons of layers, and her conflict with Miki was my favorite conflict in this series. In this video, I'll discuss what we can tell about her from before the series starts, then I'll dive into taking up her role and how important it was to her. After that, I'll discuss her discourse with Miki and why she did so. And lastly, I'll get into her biggest strength as a character. We don't know a lot about Ree's life before the series starts. In fact, I'd say we knew the least about hers. You may be wondering why a whole section is devoted to the idea if that's the case, and the reason why is simple. The lack of concrete motives for her past paints an entirely different picture of her life from before the series starts, than if we were to hear her about her backstory. Before the series starts, she is a gardening club member, and she's not even in charge. When Miss Sakura tells her that she's the leader, she's surprised. She takes on the responsibility, but I want to discuss the kind of person she seemed to be before, and why there's so little to it present in the story. I don't think that Ree suffers from low self-esteem like Yuki and Kurumi. I think that she was never pushed to do more. When she gets excited about something, it seems to drive her, and she'll really do well. We see this the most with the Water and Balloon Witch title she brandishes during the last not intense episode. This episode mostly revolved around the characters taking a breather after hearing some intense, life-altering news, and spending a day relaxing and having fun before they continue down the dark path they were heading down. I found the water fight to be surprisingly telling about the kind of person Ree is. I mentioned in other videos that I created a spectrum to represent the main theme of the story, and there are two ends, with the objective to be in the middle. One was prioritizing enjoying life, and the other was accepting harsh truths. The middle was the full theme, which is that in order to live life, you have to be able to accept hard truths and to be able to find joy. The end Ree was in for the majority of the series was the joy end. She prioritized finding reasons to be happy over real facts or hard truths, and that was an indication of that mindset being in her past, despite the fact that she was nearly in the middle by the time of this episode. It's revealed during the epic battle that Ree had lied when she said she didn't bring the water guns, and that they had just appeared, and were probably left by someone else. The reason she lied about it was so that the others would agree to play with her. She finds water guns super fun, and even brought them to her club. I thought this was an interesting thing to show because it's one of the things we know she did before the outbreak. All the information you're given about a character is super important when remembering that writing is an intentional choice. I think that this was placed as one of the only parts of her past to show what that in her life, the one without stress, she would choose to do fun things, and she was motivated by those said things. She brought them to school and likely had epic battles pretty often, all for the sake of fun. I think one other thing that this aspect of her past shows is her lack of a deeper purpose before the series started. Before she became leader, the only thing we see that motivated her was fun, or a basic sense of responsibility, like when she was the only one to show up for the gardening club. I think the reason she became such an effective leader stems from her past. She had no purpose and had nothing to really push her forward. We don't know much about her past because she hadn't been doing anything that really mattered to her. It also shows just how much her life revolved around fun, which is something of little substance. By the way, if you're enjoying this, please like and subscribe. She enjoyed living her life that way, but when she was given an opportunity to do more, that strong motivation of hers kicked in. Speaking of which... Before I get into it, I do want to specify that when I say Megane, I'm referring to the delusion, and when I say Miss Sakura, I'm referring to the person. Thank you. The reason why I mention this is because Miss Sakura gave the responsibility of leader to Ree, and I want to discuss why before moving on to how it worked out. Ree in those flashbacks is seen as a problem solver, a team player, and someone who cares for the others. What I mean by this is the act of giving Miss Sakura the idea of the school life club in the first place. She told Misakura that if it might help Yuki, since Yuki had been crying all the time since the outbreak. It makes sense and is logical, but it also comes from a place of care. Not only did she notice that Yuki was suffering, but she went out of her way to think of a solution and attempt to make it a reality. Misakura was doing something similar by thinking of giving classes, but then she saw Yuki's idea was more fun. Which does speak to Ri's priorities, but more importantly, shows that Ri wants those around her to be happy as well, which shows that she has good priorities not just about herself, but also for a leader. Or at least that's what Misakura saw. The end result was very different, because those traits that were once positive turned sour once the situation changed. Later the same day, after Ri was elected leader, we could see the four of them have one last good moment together before it all came crashing down. We can see here, when Ri takes the photo so that Sakura can be in one, that she was already starting to put in effort to be a good leader. She was considering the wants of those around her, stepping up and making choices that benefit everyone without prompting. It may seem small, but those things that Megane saw value in were made even stronger by the fact that Ri was given those responsibilities. After that picture, due to something none of them could have predicted, they lost Miss Sakura. Miss Sakura sacrificed herself and left the group without an adult. That also left Yuki's mind in shambles. For a while, Ri just dealt with it the way she thought she could, but soon she saw that there was potential within Yuki's mental state, and she started to value the joy that Yuki's delusions brought the group. This would become challenged once a certain someone entered the picture. Miki didn't want to lie to Yuki, but she felt as if she had to. Ri was the #1 champion for the idea, and Kurumi was doing it because she was following what Ri was doing. Ri had Yuki's delusions as a beacon of joy in her life, and she didn't want it to go away. Whenever Miki brought it up, Ri would always retort, and she would give a reason for why she shouldn't, or the excuses. She wouldn't say things like, because I want to, but internally, for the most part, that's exactly why. Ri's priority was having joy in her life, and those around her having joy in their lives too. She of course cared about their survival and well-being, but she usually picked the former over the latter. She would usually take Yuki into places Yuki had no business going, and Ri would change plans and prepare less if it meant following Yuki's fun train. Ri, much like Kurumi, saw Yuki as a compass. Kurumi did it in a different way, but they both came to the same conclusion. Yuki had a unique ability to not feel hopeless, and that could allow Ri to find the joy that she'd been missing from her life. The only problem is that Ri didn't seem to consider that she wasn't really respecting Yuki all that much by treating her that way. She did it for the best reasons that she could think of, but it was really just an excuse, because by going out of her way to lie to Yuki and telling the others to do so too, she was setting Yuki up to almost never get better. This is an extremely complicated topic that I go into detail on in Yuki's video, so if you want to see the full analysis of that, it's on my channel and looks like what's on screen. Feel free to subscribe if you like my videos, it helps a lot. Thank you. Back to it. Although Ri didn't have the skills necessary to help Yuki, she was still hurting her by lying, and the idea is what pushed her towards reaching the main theme. This happens kind of late, and it's because of her conflict with Miki. Miki addressed the issues with Yuki many times throughout the story, and Ri had just been writing it off or arguing against change until one time. When Yuki nearly came to in front of the whole group, but lies stressed her out and made her leave, Miki brought it up again. This time, even Kurumi agreed with Miki, and that's important. Now that Ri wasn't a part of the majority opinion, she had an easier time reflecting on whether or not it's wrong. When Kurumi was hesitant about it, she still did it, and was basically just Kurumi and Ri back then, so Ri never really felt outnumbered. But at this point, she saw multiple people were agreeing that it needed to be addressed, and this time she took it more seriously. This likely speaks to her inexperience as a leader. She didn't address the problem until the majority brought it up, because she liked the way things were. It wasn't out of malice, and her reconsidering things proves that. It's just that she doesn't understand how to integrate other people's thoughts and opinions into decision-making just yet, which is very difficult, especially for those with no leadership experience. Heck, even people who are leaders right now struggle with this. Ri started to consider Yuki's delusions as a potential problem, but that's not what sent her towards growth. It was a conversation the three of them had afterwards. They discussed how dogs see the world differently than humans, and someone says that maybe Yuki and their dog see the same world. Oof, harsh. Ri did not like that comparison. She got mad at that notion, still calm, but mad. She said that maybe they all saw different worlds, basically saying that she has no idea how they could see things that way. The reason why this bothered her is because she had never considered seeing Yuki as less than a person or anything other than human. To her, Yuki's delusions were a gift, but the way the other two saw it in that moment, Yuki wasn't like a person. Ri had never considered Yuki to be lesser or different than the others. In fact, hearing the others say and agreeing to that idea was jarring to her. I think that this moment was the one that really changed things, because it was after this that Ri had started to progress as a character by facing hard truths. Miki relaxed after that conversation, but Ri started to make changes. Ri immediately looked into the secrets of their school, and while they were looking, Ri had another huge moment of growth. When Miki found the picture, the picture of Miss Sakura right before she died, I found it really interesting because they had already looked there. When they had looked the first time, Ri definitely had seen that picture but left it there. I think that Miki taking it out was in a way sort of making Ri have to confront that picture. And when she just kind of either found it or was handed to her, she took a really good look at it for the first time, and I think that's what started to change her mindset. When she was not only just able to leave it in a drawer, but forced to confront it for the first time. Seeing Miss Sakura the day that it happened, the last time the group was whole, she remembered what was important. Miss Sakura had left her in charge of taking care of the others, even if she hadn't done so directly. They had a lot of similarities in both their mindsets and priorities, and they even had similar ideas like the club and having lessons. When Ri remembered what really mattered to her, she decided to directly confront the truths that she had been mostly hiding from, but her own words bit her. She ended up in a position where it was her job to change things because of the decisions she had previously made, but those things were getting in her way. It didn't work when she tried to tell Yuki to remember the truth, but her heart was in the right place. She didn't want to avoid hard truths anymore, and when Yuki found the important documents, she started to face things directly. The next day, as mentioned earlier, they had a day to relax. This shows that Ri didn't go too far in the opposite direction. If she didn't care about joy and only prioritized the truth, she would have swapped where she was on it. But this shows that she was in the middle. She had been and would confront those hard truths. But if they did so without a break, they might fall into despair. So having a day to be happy before confronting the truth some more was the perfect thing to do in alignment with the core theme. It was good too, because the ending of that episode made me go, no, go back, go back, when Toromaru left his collar, and the little breather was necessary and good for all of them. Ri always made sure to make the kinds of choices with tons of Ri's main trait is her empathy and her desire to make others feel safe and happy. There are tons of instances of this, and this trait is present in all her relationships in the cast, especially after she becomes club leader. With Miss Sakura, they had similar ideas, and it was her that taught Ri how to be the leader-type figure should be, with tons of care for those you are leading. Ri's relationship with Miki may have been turbulent at times, but it's clear to see Ri cares about Miki, and Miki fully trusts Ri. It was a little rocky at the start. We see in the flashback episodes that Miki eventually trusted Ri to the point where she wanted to show that she could play along by asking to be an official member of the club. We even see later that this meant a lot to Miki as a person because she told Zamegane right before, you know what? Never mind. Miki also showed many instances of trusting Ri specifically, like how she'd tell Ri about her worries, like my favorite example of how she got sad after reading her book, or finishing her book. Ri asked her about it, and Miki ended up saying a lot of interesting stuff that really showed that she was opening up about deep feelings, or at least the things that she said were huge indicators of her past. It's kind of funny talking about the relationship between them in two different videos, so yeah, I guess if you want the full story from both perspectives, you have to watch both. Have fun. But yeah, Miki showed that she trusted Ri deeply, and even brought Ri to the key she found, brought Ri the key she found, and even told her the worries that Miki was having about the key. Ri is a good listener, like Megane, and she went out of her way to make Miki feel both heard and that the things were going to be taken care of. Ri took it really seriously, and she often does so when it comes to her friends. Kurumi is a great example of that. Whenever Kurumi is putting herself in danger, Ri is the one who is the most concerned, and that's because of how much she cares. She wants more than anything for them to be happy and safe, so when Kurumi risks her life, it makes Ri worry about her. I also like that when Kurumi was struggling, she also told Ri about it. Many characters cry for help, and they usually go to Ri. The reason why is because the others can tell that she cares deeply. The empathy and kindness that she brings to the group is very good for it. Yuki would probably have the most strained relationship with Ri if this was real life, but in series, they get along fine. And even though I thought it was weird not to mention how Ri took part in keeping Yuki within her delusions, I think the reason why it's never addressed directly is because it was a very hard moral dilemma of what you should do to help someone with something you can't help them with. And also because I think that Yuki felt as if she had to take responsibility for her delusions. I don't agree with that. She was really young, and it's not like she did that on purpose, but the reason I think that Yuki feels this way is because she acknowledged towards the end of her reconnecting with reality that she felt scared, so she tried to ignore the scary things. Like I said in her own video and all that, but those words came from a really deep place. I also think that Yuki doesn't see it as worth bringing up. Ri does and did care about Yuki, and she didn't do it out of malice. Ri didn't have that many options, so she did what she thought was best. She made some mistakes, but when she saw that she learned from them. Overall, Ri is an extremely empathetic character who cares deeply about her friends. She hadn't had the chance to really prove herself and to see what she was really capable of, and becoming the leader of the school life club was the perfect opportunity for her to do that. It was really fun watching her grow as a character, and I imagine that after they left the school, she was still in charge, despite the club no longer being a thing. Ri is an awesome character, and I think she shows a really awesome truth about life and about your potential. A lot of the times, maybe you don't think that you're capable of doing a lot more, but when you're given the chance, you can often surprise yourself and surprise those around you. Ri's a perfect example because maybe she didn't start out with the, most amazing motivations, and maybe she didn't care to apply herself that much, but when she was given that responsibility, when she pushed herself past beyond where she thought was possible, she proved that she was way more capable than she had ever thought she could be. So I hope you could take that with you. Now, farewell. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I make videos pretty regularly, so if you liked it, feel free to check them out. Thank you for watching.